I read it somewhere that they have to feed every 20 minutes for the hummingbirds.
Yeah, I see them. I read too where it said if you see one, which there's one there right now, you have 8 to 10.
Really?
If you see 2, you have around 15 to 20. Then from there it doesn't go up so much, but I see 4 and 5 together a lot of times. So we've got a pretty good group of them coming now.
I wonder where they go when the cold weather hits.
They migrate.
Really?
Yep. Yeah, they'll go. And what's neat about it is it says if they have a good, like a caretaker, like me, if you're good, the hummingbirds that migrate from you, they won't come back and just go somewhere else. They'll come right back to you every time. And they'll stay here for the summer. Then they'll find one down wherever they go down into the south, far enough south to where it's warmer, and they have one there. And they'll go back and forth between 2 caretakers. They won't pick a 3rd or a 4th or a 5th. They go to those and they find their way back every time. So I'm loved by something.
We love you. I just can't show it because I'm just jealous.
Good to be on this morning. I hope everything's going well for everyone. We had a good week. And I'm bringing Facebook up here, and I'll let Alan use my phone to track with. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So Brother Alan will be using my phone this morning to track what you have to comment on or say or whatever. And I wanted to read something. We've been talking on dimensions and regeneration and cycles. So between those 3, we're kind of going back and forth and back and forth. And anything else on your mind that comes up that you would want to talk on, anybody here or out there, just, it's wide open. It's what I call, I think Rush Limbaugh every Friday has a free-for-all. And every Friday he says, it's open mic.
Open mic, yeah.
Say whatever you want. So we're open mic every time we come on. We're not closed mic. If you have something you'd like to say, say it. And if we can't address it because we don't know what it's about, we will definitely look it up and we'll have a good time with it, or we'll let you address it, however you would like to. I want to read this. It's out of Psalms, the 19th chapter, and this is not the King James version, but I like this version better. I can't remember. I think it's NIV maybe or something, but New American Standard Version. The heavens are telling of the glory of God, and their expanse is declaring the work of his hands. Day to day pours forth speech. So we're going to talk a little bit about some dimensions, and if we get to speech or language and music, we'll be talking a lot about these scriptures. Day to day pours forth speech, and night to night reveals knowledge. There is no speech, nor are there words, where their voice is not heard. Their line has gone out through all the earth, and their utterances to the end of the world. And to them he has placed a tent for the sun, which is as a bridegroom coming out of his chamber. It rejoices as a strong man to run his course. Its rising is from one end of the heavens, and its circuit to the other end of them. And there is nothing hidden from its heat. So what David wrote here, or one of his writers and songwriters, whoever wrote it, they're saying that the sun is constantly, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, affecting the entire earth, whether it's daytime or nighttime. He said that, and in the night, from night to night, knowledge goes throughout the earth, and from day to day, speech goes out through the earth. So you get language and speech and knowledge and all these things going throughout the earth, and the sun has its own language. And the sun has created all languages. If you take the thought of it, what bird would be singing without the sun? What person would be talking without the sun? What just go on and on. The trees, the grass, everything has a voice. Everything is heard. When I say grass, and I just say grass, we can have a whole conversation about grass. You can go on and on about how it grows, what kinds there are, how thick some are, how thin some are, how some will live in some places, some won't live in the other. You could go on and on and on about grass all day long because it has its own language. It's talking to you. And it's the same way with trees. You could talk about, the evergreens. They die off, as far as the sickles and things like that falling off of them, but they never change their color. They stay green if they're alive and healthy. And the trees that actually do have the perpetual resurrection, you can do everything you think on, it has a speech of its own. And the sun is what's sending that speech out through all the earth every single day. So dimensions go so much further than what we ever thought about or talked about, or what was ever written, scriptures, books, science, everything else. It goes so much further when you start thinking on it. And I know this is a couple of days past it, but we just came through September 11th, and I was thinking about, I woke up that morning on September 11th, and my mind went right back to that day and what had taken place the night before. I was doing negotiations in Indianapolis. I got out of those late. I was supposed to take a late flight on Monday night into New York, but the negotiation went longer than I thought. I didn't feel good about going to New York. I just didn't feel good about it. I was supposed to be there to give a tour through the towers. There was 8 different people visiting the corporation. I was supposed to be there to give a tour. And Monday evening, I called Brother Jamie Wesley, and I said, Brother Wesley, I said, I'm supposed to be in New York tomorrow morning, but I don't feel good about going. I think I'm going to call them and just tell them to get somebody else to do the tour if they possibly can. I had a 10 o'clock that night flight. And he said, yeah, if you don't feel good about going, if I were you, I would call them. So we talked a little while and I hung up. I called and I talked to those that were going to be on the tour. They would leave from the IP tower and go. But anyway, they said, don't worry about it, don't worry about it. You went through all these negotiations, you're fine. Our meetings with these people don't actually start until 2 in the afternoon, so catch a morning flight, get you some rest, and catch a morning flight. So that's what I planned. And I remember Patty coming in that Tuesday morning about 8:30, somewhere around here. Donald, get up, get up. I said, what's going on? She said, you got to see this. And I said, I don't have to be at the airport till like noon. Just take it easy. She said, no, you don't understand. Look at this. And I turned, the TV was on and it was showing the towers and it was saying all flights across the United States were canceled. And so I was stunned to think that I would have been right there. They struck at, I think it was 8:40, something like that in the morning. I'd have been right there at the top of Tower Number 1 had I flew and went on to New York. So every September 11th, I personally just kind of bow my head and say, Mr. Spirit, you sure are wonderful. You've given me these 19 years or 18 years extra, and I look at every day as extra for me, and keep my head up and think, well, you know, I got some extra time and I want to do everything I can with it. And I was just wondering if you can remember where you were at that morning.
Yeah.
And,
Exactly.
I was in Mexico.
sleeping.
No,
Okay, what were you
but
doing?
I saw the news.
Yeah.
Some of my family went through that. They're still alive,
Yeah.
so that's good.
Oh, some of your family was in New York?
Yeah,
Okay.
close to New York. Peewee.
Oh,
New
yeah,
York.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was in San Antonio with a paintbrush in my hand. I guess that stands perfect for me.
Yeah.
Had to stop what I was doing because the guy I was painting for, was this millionaire out there had a few houses, and he said, man, you're not going to believe this. You got to come in and see this. I can't even describe it, of course, all over the screen. The plane had already hit the first one, and then they were showing the second one being struck. And then just, of course, the skies over San Antonio, which you usually got, suddenly went quiet. And every now and then you'd hear a couple fighter jets moving, and that's it. Other than that, it was just shut down. So yeah, it leaves an impression on your mind you never forget it.
Yeah. I remember that here. You could hear everything firing up, and flying, and getting ready to do whatever they need to do, because we live right next to the base here.
Yeah. Well, in San Antonio, you got Randolph Air Force Base,
Yeah.
which is a smaller one, but then you have one of the second largest Air Force base on the planet that we have is right there in San Antonio. And man, these guys were taking off like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
I mean, the skies were kind of busy, but it was nothing but military, no commercial. So you knew something was going on just by watching the skies. Thought, what is going on? Are we being attacked? What's going on, man?
Yeah.
So it was an unusual day. Yeah.
Yeah. The feeling of it all.
Mm-hmm.
It was just, it's like, wow, the inland has been attacked. You just didn't know where it was going to go for a while.
I was stuck in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. I went for a training, and the night before, Arby took me to the airport, and she said, I really don't think you should go. I said, oh, honey, she said, no, I don't think you should go. I don't know if you remember that or not. And of course, me being hard-headed and stubborn, it's like, oh yeah, I'll be fine. Well, the first clue was a plane wouldn't leave for another 30 minutes because the ground sensor malfunctioned. So I sat there and thought, maybe Aubrey's right, but nah, I'm gonna go. Well, went to the hotel, got up the next morning for the training, went downstairs, hadn't looked at the news or anything, went downstairs for the training. Everyone was like talking. I thought, what are you guys talking about? He said, don't you know? I said, no, I don't know what you're talking about. He said, go upstairs, look at your TV. He said, training's up canceled, go look at your TV. As soon as I turned it on, the second plane hit the tower, second tower. And I thought, yeah,
You were
right
there close to it.
I was close, down in Cherry Hill, yeah. And the whole country shut down. I could not get out of that town. The bridges, the tunnels, the airport, bus station, train, everything. I finally was able to rent a car on Friday and get out, but the whole country shut down.
Yeah. Yeah. I had some friends that were there and in New York, inside the tunnels and everything, and they shut them down. They couldn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Some of them, they said, all of them said you wouldn't believe how quick all the taxis disappeared. And I said, why? They said they're all foreign. And as soon as they knew it was foreigners, they hit the towers, they were scared they were going to get killed, beat, whatever. They said the taxis is like, poof, they were gone.
That was an amazing morning because we knew we were under attack, but we didn't know who from. I mean, nobody knew where it came from. It just happened, and the country reacted really well.
I never thought of that, but that's right. In San Antonio, 95% of the taxis are foreigners, and out of that, probably 85% of them are Muslim.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
yeah, that morning, you couldn't find taxis nowhere. And if you did, they were rare, and it was definitely an American driving the taxi.
Yeah.
So I never thought of that, but yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
They just kind of disappeared for a day or so.
Yeah, that's what a guy, Ken was his name. He was there and he told me that. He said they just all disappeared and then slowly they started showing back up. But how about you? Do you remember Sister Autumn?
Yeah, I was working at the vet clinic and trying to get a hold of Alan.
Oh, okay. Because you knew he was there in Cherry Point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But I didn't know his flight number and all that.
Okay. So that was a time to remember, and we have all those. Yeah, you could really say those were almost dimensions within themselves. You can go back and almost live that out again and again and again, because it imprints or it embeds itself or it becomes a part of the encryption of your character. And there's many things that happen in your life that either traumatize you or excite you or whatever it does, and they happen and you're, hey, Brother Darrell, good to see you.
Hey, young man. Enjoy it.
6 straight months I've been looking at this.
Hey, I'm on the road.
Been wanting to do this.
I'm glad you can make it just to do that. I appreciate that.
Only Daryl.
So we were talking about where were you and how do you remember September 11th on that day when the towers were struck? Where do you remember that morning? You remember what you were doing, where you were at? What
Driving down State Route 28, Randolph County.
Okay.
Had the radio on and they said that I don't know if it was the first or second plane had flown through the second tower. I thought, what? And I happened to pass a gun shop and I didn't have one, so I went and bought one.
That makes sense.
I did.
That makes
I
sense.
did.
Yeah.
I bought it and a whole bunch of ammo. I thought, man, we're being invaded.
Yeah. Sure. That's
Being
okay.
invaded.
That's a good
We're being
reaction.
invaded.
Yeah.
I don't have it. I had shotguns at home, but I didn't have nothing on me. I thought I'll be killed before I get home.
Might as well. Yeah. That's
I mean,
smart.
that's what I thought. I had no idea.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they talked about the one crashing at the Pentagon, and I thought, well, that's
Yeah.
farther away from Randolph County. I guess maybe they're going to stay down south.
Yeah, and then the one that crashed into the field in Pennsylvania.
Yep.
And yeah, that was a day to remember. So we've been talking on dimensions and how you enter those dimensions, you feel them, you see them, you react, you become a part of them. And today, there's a couple of things written down here from our last discussion. People wrote things down, but I wanted to read a couple of them and we can discuss them. But Joe Gomez, he said, sometimes we get caught up in a frequency we can't explain that takes us to the condition of paradise. You get caught up, it takes you to the condition of paradise. And you remember the reason he had a whole title of his message was Paradise.
Mm-hmm.
It was where we talked about the two thieves on the cross, and Jesus looked at the one because the one was saying, I know what I've done, I deserve to be here, but you don't, and please remember me when you come to your kingdom. So he had entered into a condition taking him into paradise.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus said, this day you'll be with me. The other one Jesus ignored. He paid no attention to what he was saying. All of his vulgarism and anger and hatred and lack of belief, Jesus just left him alone. And he entered into where he was going, he had to go somewhere, wherever that might be. His mind stayed alive, his person stayed alive, his body died on the cross, but he entered in to a place where he was going to have to work those feelings out and come to an understanding of what happened. And so paradise is a condition that you get yourself into, and one did and one didn't, and Jesus addressed the one that did. Sometimes we get caught up in the frequency and we can't explain that takes us to a condition of paradise. We, being dimensional beings, can catch the frequency that takes us to other dimensions. Be in the frequency of love, for it will always carry you to the paradigm of your revised, renewed paradise condition. I thought, wow, that's good. It will break all of the paradigms that you've been in. This thief, think of how many homes he entered, how many things he broke into, maybe how many people he had to beat up or kill or whatever. He's hanging there on Calvary, and he broke that whole paradigm of condemnation and everything about himself. And Pastor Gomez is saying, be in the frequency of love, for it will always carry you to the paradigm of your revised and renewed paradise condition. He left that and entered into Christ, or he broke that old way of living and broke all of that condemnation and got rid of it, whereas the other one was still wrestling with it and had a lot to go. So you'll move to your paradigm of your revised, renewed condition, and a paradigm is just a concept of what you're in at the time, like a box. Some people can't break that paradigm. Their little mind stays in a box all the time about this big, and they can't get outside of that box and think out here or out here. And other people, because they're such rebels, they won't even enter that box, and they think here and here and here and here, and they're always trying to stay outside the box. For me, I just don't believe that there's a box, period. I believe we're way beyond any of that, and we are free thinkers, and I'm not creating a box, a rectangle, or a triangle, or anything else. I am enjoying everything that I can possibly enjoy. So that's to give you a thought of, some people, maybe because it's the English language, you might not know what a paradigm is. It's just your space that you seem to want to stay into and be comfortable, your comfort zone all the time. And you need to break that. Goes on, says the things in our mind, things that we feel, are dimensions we can enter into. If we want to understand dimensions, understand our condition, if you're not comfortable with your dimension, then change your frequency. Understand your condition. If you're not comfortable with your dimension, then change your frequency.
Right.
Be in the moment. That will take you to the dimension where you are at peace with yourself, everything, and everyone else. So break out of what's bothering you. Break out of what keeps you. It's like me. I went through a period of time. I was telling my wife yesterday evening, we were sitting and talking some. I said, I went through a period of time in my body, about a 2-year period, April the 7th, when I got home from the Philippines, and actually about a week before that, say April 1, where things really started going haywire in my body, April 1, 2018, until about this weekend right here, 2019, September 14th or 15th, whatever it is, almost 2 years, year and a half at least, of horrible pain. There wasn't a day that it just wasn't excruciating. Everything from the operations to the removal of the tumor to the healing of that to the 6 months chemotherapy to the polyp removal, the staph infection that I received from that, another hernia, and there was a year and a half, it was just excruciating. And there were times when I said to myself, I just cannot get into the concept of killing myself. But if there's any way I could possibly just lay down and not wake up, if there's any way that I could possibly just, something happened to me and get out of this, it hurt that bad. And so for about a year and a half, it was that way with me. And I finally started finding ways to diminish that, to get rid of that. And I did it through music, through reading scientific things and philosophy things and this and that and the other. Through doing all kinds of things, I learned ways of getting your mind off of the pain. And that's never easy either. Go for hours before you finally get some relief. And so you push those things aside that are causing you so much trouble. You do everything you can to find a place of peace with yourself, with everything and everyone else. And I told her, I said, I think I'm going to sit down and maybe write a little book on pain. Doesn't have to be big, but something on pain and how to come to grips with it, and even in some cases deliver yourself from it. So that's what Pastor Joe was saying. When you get into positions and conditions, and if you want to understand dimensions, understand your condition. And if you're not comfortable with your dimension, then change your frequency. That's what I started doing. I started changing my frequency, which was screaming with pain, and I would put on different styles of music, different things. I would listen to a lot of things. I would meditate, which Brother Jamie has been talking to me, and he's really getting into that. He said it's an amazing thing to get rid of pain. So there's so many ways that you can do it. There's experiences, there's mind altering conditions, many things that you can do. Some of it chemically induced, some of it spiritually induced. And my question, just before we move on, though, is how do you deal with what overtakes your mind sometimes, causes a place you don't want to be, where there's pain or agony or mental or whatever? How do you deal with it? How do you get rid of it? How do you at least move it aside and find some peace for a little while? Because every one of us need to understand how to do that somewhat. With this world that we're living in, we're going to have pain.
Mm-hmm.
How do you deal with it?
If I'm up and on my 2 feet, I usually go to a park. I go to a park, either go for a walk or go sit and listen and just let the woods take me. If I'm out my home and on my back, I put on some Native American music and just sit and listen to it. That's how I deal with it.
That's a lot of the way I do. And walking, sometimes 5 miles in the morning, 5 miles in the evening. Other times 5 miles in a day, but I walk. I just walk and walk and walk. It was my way of dealing with the pain. And also Native American music, I listen to it a lot. And other styles, the Indian style, the nice, soft music, a lot of shaman type things.
Yeah, music is powerful. It is very healing. For me, it works probably more so than anything. I try to take my mind to places where I've been or want to be, where the condition, I'm in a happy condition. And I have found that if you plant yourself in a positive energy atmosphere, then that atmosphere naturally will gravitate to you, and things in that kind of atmosphere will gravitate to you. And though it may not alleviate all of what you're going through, it will help some.
Yeah.
It'll alleviate some.
What do you listen to? Heavy metal?
No, I go always.
Just kidding.
I never have been a heavy metal fan, but I do go back to the 70s rock and roll,
Sure,
classic rock and roll.
70s.
I go back to that. Sometimes I'll go with soft. I'll do Jessica and Young, James Taylor, King, real soft. And sometimes I'll go Leonard Skinner, Pink Floyd. It depends on where my mind's at, but I get myself into something that I feel, and I just stay in that music.
Yeah.
And in staying in that music, it's reminiscent of good times and things I did and how I enjoyed it. And that's a healing balm for me. It starts in the mind and then it channels through my body.
Sure.
Right. When I'm in pain, I actually listen to Rod Stewart.
Ross
Rod
Stewart?
Stewart. I like his music,
He's good.
and yeah, and I feel better.
Yeah.
I forgot the pain somehow, but I
Yeah,
enjoy
it's
it.
a frequency. A lot of people will say, Rod Stewart, or Bob Seger, what's the matter with you? What you? It's a frequency
Mhm.
that matches a frequency within you.
Right.
And if you can find that frequency, it'll heal.
Yeah.
As long as you are butting up against everything around you in pain and agony,
Mm-hmm.
you're never going to heal unless you find that frequency.
And to me, for everybody, this is a key part of it. You have to be able to use your imagination, because if you don't have that type of memory base to go back to and draw from, you need your imagination to create one. And you can create an atmosphere. You can create an atmosphere where your condition in that, based on the influences of music, is stimulating to you in a positive way, and you can move into that. If you can't do that, it becomes real challenging. Then you have to go back to something you literally have had experience with and draw from it. For me, if that doesn't happen, immediately, I don't hesitate. I will create one in a heartbeat. I will just create an atmosphere with the condition that I like in it, and I'll just move right into it and sit down and stay there.
Sure. Many of the Jewish people, not many of them left now, but those that were in the concentration camps, that's what they talked about with their little books they wrote and things afterwards. They used their imagination and put themselves in another world.
Mhm.
You know, they received, potato a day to eat and in muddy water, and they imagined it as, a steak, veggies, and they were eating. They imagined all the time with their eyes closed, they would just eat it and think of it as something else. In the conditions they were in, they would take themselves out of that condition and put themselves back where they were at in their home with their family, and they would just stay there.
Mm-hmm.
And it kept them alive. And they even said the ones who couldn't do that were the ones who died.
Mm-hmm.
They just
Yeah.
couldn't take it.
Didn't have that ability
Yeah.
to use their imagination creatively.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My mom had a stroke, and for several days she was pretty much paralyzed. She couldn't move. She knew what was going on around her, but she could not physically move. Almost, she described it kind of like a comatose state. She just couldn't do anything. So after she got out, I went to see her and I said, "Mom, how did you survive that? I mean, you're laying in bed, can hear everyone, but you can't move your head, you can't talk, you can't move anything. I mean, you're just laying there. How did you mentally survive that?" She said, "Alan, I went back and I made Thanksgiving dinner." And she said, my mom made everything from scratch. I mean, everything from scratch. She said she went back to the happy time in life where all of us were together, and she made us Thanksgiving dinner. She took every ingredient and mixed it in her head as if she was physically making it, all the way to the turkey to serving it on the table. She said, I just kept doing that over and over until I got out of it and I could start moving around and start feeling my body again.
Yeah.
That's how she survived that, was making Thanksgiving dinner. That tore me up, tore me apart.
Yeah. When you think of the things you love, put your imagination into a happy time, or at least a good time. Remove the pain. Sure, I'm sitting here and I'm saying this, and my fingers are still hurting from chemotherapy. I can't hardly touch them together without it stinging and hurting. But I have to put my mind on other things. When I take my mind off of those things and I come back, it's like, but I get my mind off of it. I get it on other things.
Pain medication does the same thing. Narcotic pain medication, it doesn't take the pain away.
That's right.
It tells your mind you're feeling this way, and you're not really feeling, your body's still feeling the pain, but your mind deceives your body and says, oh, there's this euphoria. There's not really pain, it's euphoria. And it changes your body's still going through the pain. If you don't believe so, push yourself extra hard and let the medication wear off and watch the results.
Yeah.
Suddenly all the pain and soreness is
Yeah.
there. Why? It doesn't leave you. You just change your perception of it. Same thing pain medication does. You can do that naturally with your own mind.
You can. It's not easy.
It's not easy. It takes
it's-
training.
And it's something that you practice on. It's like going into the Gap. You practice on shutting your mind down and not thinking. And you might only be able to stay there 10 seconds, 5 seconds, or whatever, and then boom, 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 everything starts. You got to step in there and practice at it, and slow but sure that 10 seconds will spread out to 30, and then it'll spread out to a minute, then it'll be 2 and 3, and then for me, I can sit there sometimes now for half an hour to an hour and not have one thought on my mind other than what's in that gap. Not letting all those frequencies just chatter, just shut them down.
And they tried to explain that to us. I remember a movie, Altered States, William Hurt, back in the 70s, where it was all about that. He would get himself in a dark water tank. It's enclosed in a tank, salt water, where he has the buoyancy, and he would just float. There's no sound, there's no sight. You're just in this quiet, liquid state. And then out of that, you come in contact with yourself, and all sorts of things explode.
Yeah.
They were trying to open that to us back in the 70s, and we just thought it was nuts. And that's exactly what they were doing. They were finding ways to connect with the gap.
Yes.
And now today we look at, oh yeah, I know exactly what was going on there. We just thought it was a sci-fi thing, but now we realize it's a reality. It's what you do. It's how you connect with yourself.
Joe Gomez, one on the right. When we speak, never make it sound like it's about them, but rather about us. Hey, how you doing? Pull a chair up there, you'll be fine. When we speak, never make it sound like it's about them. In other words, don't separate yourself. It's very easy to say, they are blah, 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 whatever it might be. We are, and you're all the time separating yourself. Every religion came from a man's mind. Every political government came from a man's mind. Everything comes from the mind of a man. When it comes to all that we are dealing with, that's set up in such a manner as politics, religion, governments, and on economies. So you can separate yourself from them. I separate myself from the religion, but I don't separate myself from them. William Branham made a great statement when he's talking. He said, I do not hate those people. I love those people. I hate the system they're in. And that's the way I feel about all that's going on, all the terrorism, all the poverty from the governments, all the terrorism from the rebels, all of the religion from all of it. I hate it. I hate it. I want it to change. But I love the people. You know, if you don't love the people, there's something in you that's going to destroy you. That hatred and that anger and all the things out there. So when you speak, never make it sound like it's about them, but rather about us. What I say about you also refers to me, not just an individual, but all of us. What we say to anybody here is really all about us. Let us move our frequency from the lower dimensions. Lower dimensions separate things. Let us move our frequency from the lower dimensions to the higher levels of cognitive thinking, bringing everything together. Beginning with love. Paradise begins with our words, then every work shall follow. So I like that. Paul said in one place, he said, if a man's works prove to be good, they'll be accepted. If not, they shall be burned with fire. So move your thinking to the point of acceptable, of loving, of all of those different things, and your works will be good that people will follow on with. And if you don't, it will be burned. At some point, all of your works will be burned with that religion that was changed, modified, done away with, outlawed, whatever you want to call them. All of your works will be done away with that. So, paradise is a condition. And that's what we talked on last weekend. And what Pastor Gomez was saying is, work yourself into being accepting and being accepted in the things that you do, and you will have moved into a higher level of cognitive thinking, bringing you to the paradise that Jesus told the thief, you'll be in that with me today. It puts you into that paradise. We are constantly in process of a cycle from darkness to light. It applies to every condition that you have experienced or ever will experience. You start with no experience and move through the process of developing that process from darkness to elemental, time, science, unrest, enlightenment, and understanding brings you to the satisfaction of the experience. When you're staying in between, in some level, in some part of the process, you start out with darkness. And like the scripture said in one place, the earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep. So everything starts out in darkness, and then it moves to form, shape. Elements take hold, and it moves to form and shape, and then time takes that and all of its science of it connecting and working together in the web of life, and your human spirit, your Holy Spirit moving into that, it becomes a chaotic situation. That fifth thing, unrest. You don't know how to use it. You don't know what to do with it. You don't know exactly, even though you created it, you don't know exactly what to do with it, what to call it. And slow but sure, we move through that chaotic, just like a little baby moves through the chaotic conditions that it moves through until it learns how to walk, it learns how to put its clothes on, it learns how to talk, so it doesn't have to scream when it wants something, it doesn't have to cry when it's sad, it doesn't have to, on and on and on. You move through these processes. And when you get over there to that unrest, the reason that you have the unrest, someone said, it's because you're sinning, you're full of hell, and and you're going to go to hell and everything else. Well, the reason you move into unrest is because you don't know what to do. You don't know how to handle it. You don't know exactly what it will do to you. Should I take this? You know, I dug this, used to back in the old days, I dug this up out of the earth. Now what we're going to have to do is test it and see if it works on whatever. They didn't know the words for it, but maybe dementia, or maybe Alzheimer's, or maybe this, or maybe that, or this mold that I found in the corner. Who would have dreamed that that was the best penicillin in the world? Mm-hmm. So you don't know what to do with it at first, and it causes a lot of chaos. Then you move into rest, or what I call enlightenment. You begin to get some thought on what it is, how you can use it. And then the next thing is understanding. Okay, now I understand this. And you set it up to use it in a manner, or to be a part of your life in a manner that is helpful. So you go through all of those. You are in the darkness. I'm sorry. You are the darkness, and we are. You are the process, and you are the understanding. It's not a matter of anything being separate from you. Mm-hmm. You are the darkness, you're the whole process, you're the understanding. It's like you plant a seed into the ground. And a few days later, through the sun and the rain and the mud and everything, bing, up comes two blades. Now, was the seed that was laying there in the ground, is the two blades separate from it? No. And then it moves to stalk. You know, straight up. It's not two blades anymore. It's one stalk standing up. And then it moves to, you know, out of the stalk, that life begins to turn a little bit brownish looking, and it becomes the tassel. And then the tassel begins to die out, and it becomes the ear again, the corn, the seed, whatever you want to call it. From this seed down here in the ground to this seed up here, did it ever separate itself? Mm-hmm. So the darkness of being buried into the ground, and all the process of coming back to the light and seed again, it's just you. It's not like, uh-oh, a devil got a hold of him, now he's no good. This is you. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's going to show up as what we term devilish. And sometimes it's going to show up as what we term angelic. And sometimes, you know, it's going to be a lot of good understanding. And sometimes it's going to be a lot of confusion. Mm-hmm. But moving through that, from this darkness down here, underneath the mud and the blood and the beer, up here is a person that comes to the light. And they come to an understanding. And they move through. And it's just the person, it's just the seed, it's who you are. You're the darkness, you're the process, you are the understanding. Nothing in the cycle ever disconnects you, because you are life. Life satisfying its desires in the greatest movement in the universe that connects all things. The greatest movement in the universe. I'm not talking about our movement of, ooh, we gone beyond William Branham. I'm not talking about it. The greatest movement of life in the universe is to move from darkness to light. The greatest process of time is to come through from darkness, come right on through to shaping the elements, passing through time, and coming to the science and the technology of it all, and putting it all together, feeling a little unrestful, not knowing what to do, full of confusion, and slow but sure coming to enlightenment and understanding. Mm-hmm. That process is the greatest process in all the universe. Mm-hmm. Trees go through it, animals go through it, humans go through it, grass goes through it, everything goes through it, everything. I look out here and they say, we got 9 planets, or however many they say we got now. We got all these planets out here, and they are just, none of them can produce life. I don't believe that. I believe that every one of them are right in the middle of life, and they are producing life. They are just in a different part of the process than we are in. Right. We are further along in the process. And when they come to a point, of whatever that point is, that life begins to manifest itself across the planet, of whatever planet it is. For the sun, it may be fire life. For the moon, it may be whatever life. For Mercury, for all those different planets, it's a different style of life. For Pluto, ice, on and on and on. But it's life, and it brings forth. Dimensions run a cycle from darkness to light, or from shapeless to understanding.
Mm-hmm.
The earth was without form and void. Darkness was over the face of the deep. The cycle began and moved from darkness, formless, to form, elements. Then time, science, unrest, enlightenment, and understanding moved through the full cycle to create joy and understanding. It was a terrible situation, it seemed like, for Job. But when he got through the process, it was the greatest joy in all the world. To realize that he didn't need to worry about his children. He didn't need to worry about his things. He was going to have his cattle. They're his for eternity. He was going to have his children. He was going to have all those things. He said, well, Brother Parnell, I lost my dog. I lost my cat. You never lost anything. They're waiting for you at the door. They're jumping up and down, happy as larks. What's eternity? That dog, Honey, she's not laying over there in the ground. She's somewhere right here, dimensionally, enjoying herself and jumping up and down, and going to be so happy to see us again. And so we don't lose anything.
That's why it's hard for me to say when someone dies, say, sorry about your loss. I just cannot say that because I know you haven't lost anything.
That's right. Nothing wrong with grieving, but you haven't lost anything. Grieve because maybe you won't see them with these natural eyes for a while, but don't grieve because they're lost, because nothing is lost.
Right.
Amen. So that's some of the things that were written in from the last. And there are others, I can just keep going on and on with them. From the last discussion we had on paradise and conditions and movements and how things affect you. How does it affect you? We were just talking about losses here. My wife and I were talking, and I say this because I'm not really worried about what anybody thinks about what I say anymore. Most people probably wouldn't say it, but I grieved, if you want to call it grief. I hurt more over losing my last dog than I did really over some of my brothers, my sister, my parents, because they grew up and they went away. They got their own life started. I've seen them once every 4 or 5 years, sometimes, if that much. Would write a little something, hi, how you doing? But that little dog was every day, sitting right here for a little while, hugging you and carrying on. And when the whole world seemed like it's against you, you step in the door and they're all over you. They want you, they love you. Cats are the same way. You can just do any animal, and you'll find that it will love you no matter what. It may get mad for a little while, but it will love you. It holds that child's nature about it all the time. And how does it affect you when you lose? How do you feel like when you, quote, using a world's term for it, when you lose something like that you've loved for so long? What do you do to comfort yourself in the middle of all that?
I think, just think about the beautiful moments you spend with your dog and make you feel like the dog is around, it's still in your heart. I'm saying this because I used to have a dog myself, and you were talking about it and made me think the way that dog take care of me.
Yeah.
And he was there just like a bodyguard. If I need to move or something, that dog was trying to help me to move. Somehow, pushing me. You can do it, you can do it. So if you think about it, the dog is still in your heart.
Yeah. So discussing it threw you right back into the situation, and you felt it again.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Just now,
Yeah.
when you say it, I was like, oh, remind me of my dog.
yeah, that's dimensional shifting. I've talked about shape shifting a lot of times, and everybody said, "Oh, that's just a Native American term. He's using it to try to get people to think he's some kind of guru or something." I was trying to say, look, we all go through this shape shifting. She just went through it. She shifted to another dimension, came back and told us about it. And, you know, we all do it. How do you handle those times? How do you comfort yourself in those times when you feel that you've lost so much?
Tell you what helped me, I have read where a loved one or someone that you lost, and when you think about them, you're thinking about them because they're there. They may be in another dimension, wherever they are, that they passed on to, but they come to you, and that's why you're thinking about them. And the stronger you think about it, or the more you think about it, the closer they are to you. And eventually you get that comfort and they'll go away. So they never gone anywhere. So when you start thinking about honey, you're thinking about honey because honey's right there with you. And then the more you think about it, the more memories, the closer they are to you. They're right there next to you, comforting
That's
you.
right.
So I think about that a lot when I think about my loved ones that's passed on. And to answer your question, why was honey more special than a sibling or brother or someone? Really, it's because honey was your responsibility. Honey lived with you. You cared for her. You fed her. You cleaned her. You took her to the vet. You did everything. You took care of honey.
It's true.
Honey was your personal responsibility. Kind of like a child, but the child moves on and moves out.
Yeah.
But the dog or the animal stays right there with you till the end. So it makes it a closer connection, and you grieve more when they move on. Because that part of you that you spent your last 8 years or so, a part of you had spent your time taking care of that animal, and now that's gone.
Yeah.
And your life has to change. And it hurts.
The closer it is to you in the here and now.
Yes.
I have relatives that are spread out, but they're not here right now. You people are. So, in putting out and attaching my feelings, I don't attach my feelings way out there. I attach my feelings to what gravitates in my personal life.
That's the stronger web.
That's the
exactly.
stronger web. It's
Yes.
more powerful. It's more personal. So anything within that circle, within those cycles, is more powerful. And you
Right.
put more into it.
Yeah.
And now in dealing with the absence of it, for me, I have reached a point to where when someone leaves, when I lose something, and I don't, like I said, it's not lost, it's just no longer in my here and now. When it's no longer in my here and now, I know that somewhere I had formed a relationship that brought it into my here and now. I enjoyed that, and once again, somewhere else, it'll come right back around to that. So for me, I step back and I look at the bigger picture, because what's the phrase? Sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees. It's too close. It's too strong. And for me, I step back and look at the whole thing, and it gives me more peace. It gives me an ability to say, hey, it's not there right now, but it has never left. It's just transformed into something else that I have to catch up with it later.
Yeah.
So I never feel a loss. I just feel an absence of it, I guess is a better way to define it.
Sure.
I feel an absence of it, but it's not a loss. It's mine to possess.
Yeah.
I've always had it and will always have it. I just don't have it in the here and now right now. So you just treat your feelings the same.
I was thinking about William Branham making the statement in the Masterpiece. He said, we're so close to the coming that we just can't see everything about it clearly. And he said, years from now, when we're looking back, we'll be able to understand this so much better. And, you know, everybody reads that and they say, wow, we're so close to the coming, and then when we get on the other side of flying away in the sky, we'll understand it even better. That's not what he was saying at all. He was saying, we are so close to the coming, or the coming is here and now among us. And when we get on the other side of the coming, and it's no longer the here and now, we'll be able to look back at it. We look back at 1963 and we look at all the things that were happening. We see the Pope dying, we see the President dying, we see the prophet dying, we see a whole world changing, and it was the coming of the Lord. We see all of that happening, and it all changed. The opening of the seals, and the closing of the church ages, and the closing of the Bible, and the sealing away of all of it and coming to a new thing. We can stand over here 55 years past it and look at it and say, wow, look at that. That is something, all those things that happened. But when we were right there in it, couldn't see a whole lot of it.
It's more chaos. When you're involved in something emotionally, it's chaotic.
Yes.
Because you're creating. Every moment of it is a creation. You're creating emotions through the interaction of it. And it's chaotic in it. It's only when you can step back out of all of it and look back out of it that now it's organized. It's no longer chaos. It had a structure, it had a form,
Yeah.
it had a purpose, it had a meaning, and it's all right there, and you go, wow, look at that.
Look at
But
that.
while you're in the midst of it,
Yeah.
you can't see all that. You just can't.
You can't. Look at that whole generation from World War II to 1967. You come back here, and when World War II started, you got Hitler, Fernandez, Mussolini, Stalin. You got all those guys just massacring, slaughtering the Jews left and right, and killing them like mad. All the Hebrews and all the Jews and moms and dads and everyone else, and we all said, "Ooh, evil, evil, evil is so horrible. That's the devil. Those people that did that are going to go to hell 5 times." You know, and we see all the bombings. We see the Pearl Harbor. We're watching it all, and we see a prophet being born. We see a message coming forth. We see you come up through and you see FDR take the throne of the world and change it into a socialistic world. You just watch everything just moving on, and you see dictators raising up. You see the seals opening, and you see the promise that was given in the Bible that the church is raptured through a prophet, and Israel is raptured through tribulation. And Israel went to their homeland, raptured in the natural, on airplanes, and Israel went to their homeland, raptured in the spiritual, through the death of millions upon millions and millions of them. And the church went to its rapture, and she returned back to bring on another ministry. And we look at that, and it's so easy for me to see now. I just look back and say, man, look at that. What a masterpiece. But boy, when we were in it, when our moms and dads were in it, and they were doing the Bataan Death March, and they were doing the slaughterings and the killings, and they were doing the D-Day beaches and everything else, it didn't look too smart, it didn't look too honorable, and it didn't look very neat. But look at it now. It was such a perfect age to deliver the world into a new day. So what we have to do is take a good look at the picture now, not 50 years ago, 75 or 100 years ago. Take a good look at the picture now and understand it.
It's like putting a puzzle together. You can't just focus on that one little piece all the time that you're trying to fit in. Sometimes you just have to step back and look at the whole picture.
Yes.
And then go back to it. And if you'll do that, you'll put that puzzle together a lot quicker than just trying to focus on a couple pieces at a time.
If you take that piece, you can't figure it out, you get frustrated and angry and mad and everything else, and just throw it over there in a pile and forget it. Work on the rest of it. And after a while, that piece will fit in.
Yep.
But as long as you're focused on it, mad and angry that you can't figure out where it's at, you'll never find it.
And you'll never get the rest of the puzzle done. That one piece is stopping you from enjoying the rest of the puzzle.
Yep, I've done it many times. And I always, I remember Mom, we'd have them on the coffee table.
Mm-hmm.
And she'd say, the picture's right there. All you gotta do is put it together. And they'd have the box sitting over here. And you just put the picture's right there. No, just put it together. That's all you gotta do. And I'd be
Takes
so
patience to do
angry.
that, yeah.
Something Connie said earlier, a little bit ago, about animals and how they're there pulling you along, pushing you along. Just to show you how they never go anywhere, they're always there. When I was a little boy, I used to sleepwalk all the time. And I remember one time I was sleepwalking and there was this white and black dog walking right next to me. Big, almost sheep-looking dog. So I get to the back door and I hit the top lock, I'm ready to turn the bottom lock. My mom stopped me. She woke me up. And I looked, I said, where's the dog? She said, what dog? I said, there's a dog right here. She said, there's no dog. We haven't had a dog in years. It's okay. And I was a little boy. I totally forgot about it. And I have older siblings that there's like a 5-year gap. So one day we were all together, we're looking at family pictures, and I saw this picture. I said, what dog is this? I said, that's Chip. And they always talk about the dog Chip. I'd never seen Chip. Chip was gone before I was born. I said, Chip? And they said, yeah, that's Chip. And I told them the story. This is the dog that walked me to the back door. And they said, no, that couldn't happen. I said, yes, this is the dog that was with me, walked to the back door. Mom stopped me for sleepwalking. Just to show that they never go anywhere.
No.
That dog had been part of my brothers and sisters' heart for so long, it was still around.
Amen.
And it was protected me
Yes.
from going out that back door. It stopped me and walked out. It didn't really stop me, just walked with me. So I was not alone. I had some protection with me, and Mom stopped me. But that was the dog.
Yeah.
They are so close. I had a friend of mine who was a sniper in Vietnam. I've told about him a lot of times, so I won't go into the whole story, but he killed a lot of people. He shot one, and in order to get out, because he got left behind, he had to crawl on his belly, had to crawl over the few that he had shot, and he looked in the helmet of one of them. He saw it inside the helmet. It was a dove with an olive leaf and a picture of a guy with it like a halo over his head. And he said he always remembered that, but he crawled on out, he got free, he got home, and then he ran into the message, and he said the picture in that man's helmet was William Branham with the pillar of fire over his head. And it always just drove him crazy that he had shot a message believer and killed him. So he passed away in a lot of misery. I tried my best to help him out, but I remember the night he passed away, I was actually, that night I was laying there in Meadowlands, and he walked up to the end of my bed. And I said, Brother Ron, are you okay? Because I thought he had drove to my place in the middle of the night or whatever. He was standing right there looking at me. And he said, yes, Don. He said, I'm okay now. He said, I've crossed over. And he said, I feel so good. This is so much better. And he said, I just wanted to come by and let you know I'm with you and thank you for everything that you've done for me. It will never be forgotten. And it felt so good hurt that I knew he was gone. But when I seen the condition he was in, I just thought, thank you, thank you, thank you. So they're always there. They're always thinking of you. They're always close. And if the conditions in the atmosphere are right, they'll talk to you. They'll show themselves out of the corner of your eye, in a vision, in a dream, a dog, in a standing before you. They'll show themselves that they're with you all the time. Amen. That's what I love about the dimensions. It makes room for everybody. I used to always think, how's all the people that ever lived in all the world ever going to live on the earth? Well, how are we going to do this? This earth ain't big enough. Are we going to create another one? You know, it's just a kid. But now I understand how. Living dimensionally. We all live right here together. And eventually, as we progress and as we grow dimensionally, we'll pass through them in a manner that we can talk and see one another and enjoy it all the time. Hey, what time is it?
12:14.
Okay. Brother Simon, out of Africa, Gabon, I believe. He sent this to me. Well, I think he put this out on Facebook, but he was talking about the dimensions, and I wanted to bring this up. He said hearing, the dimension of hearing, we've always called it a sense, the five senses: see, taste, feel, smell, and hear. But he says the dimension of hearing is also producing the cycle of a great blessing in us, because it has always been by the faculty of hearing that the hidden things of the Spirit are being revealed in humanity at all the time. Hearing is the dimension by which our spirit is awakening us from glory to glory through the consistent spiritual ride of our human lives. So then faith cometh by the dimension of hearing, and hearing by the word of God. But I say, have you not heard? This is a scripture. Yes, verily, our sound is increasing into all the earth. We're hearing. And our words unto the ends of the world. And many have become wise by hearing the words of love that is unifying humanity now into one spirit by hearing. Ecclesiastes 5:1. Keep thy foot when thou goest to the house of God. We were theophany. We came into the house of God. Keep thy foot when you go into the house of God, and be more ready to hear. Remember what I read in Psalms 19? Everything has a speech. Everything has a sound. Over in the book of Corinthians, Paul said, the trumpet, if it has an uncertain sound, how can you prepare? Everything has a sound. Be prepared, be more ready to hear than to give the sacrifice of fools. For they consider not that they do evil. So, when you enter the world, don't be a fool. When you enter these dimensions and you come from theophany into here, don't be a fool and pay absolutely no attention to what you're hearing. Because everything that you're hearing is a dimension that's working with you. And it is opening up scriptures. It's opening up other people's lives to you. It's opening up your own self to you. Have ye not heard? Our sound is increasing into all the earth, and our words unto the ends of the world. Very assuredly, those who are paying attention to the voice of the Spirit in every age are those who are retaining the blessed wisdom of life. I really like that. Are you listening? Are you learning? Are you paying attention not just to the language, but to the sound? Do you know when something around you needs to change? Do you know when something is hurting? Do you know when something is talking to you and warning you and developing you to intuitively move through your path with a much wiser way of doing things? There's so many things that are talking to you every single day. Have you learned how to listen to them? Have you learned how to listen to the sun, to the trees, to the grass, to the person sitting next to you? Do you understand why you became so close to somebody? Do you understand why you're living with them? Are you listening? They're not just there. They're not just there to say hi every day. They are there because you needed them. When you entered into this world, you listen, you pay attention, you hear what they are saying, and sometimes they won't say a word. But you hear what they are saying. You pick it up. You understand it. Are you paying attention to those things, or are you the fool who just does evil? Evil just means you're paying no attention to the voice that you should be paying attention to. That's evil. And so, what are you doing with yourself in those manners of that dimension? Because it is a great dimension, a dimension that all things have speech, all things have sound. The wind is a speech blowing through the air. The leaves rattling are a speech. If you think they're not, find you an old Native American Indian somewhere and sat down with him and say, tell me about all the things that talk to you. I did this. Unbelievable. From the rivers to the voices in the water, to the trees, to the way the leaves turn. Usually a day before a great storm, normal storms, the leaves will turn that day, but if it's going to be a great storm, they turn upside down the day before. They know everything by just paying attention to the voices that are talking to them out here, to the birds that they hear. There are certain birds that they know when they knew when fall was coming. They knew when it was time to move to the valleys, to the lower grounds. They knew when it was time. All of those things they picked up by listening to the birds, to the air, to the winds, what ways the wind was blowing on and on. It was a voice. It was a language to them. We're too busy listening to the refrigerator or the stove or the TV or
The air conditioner, yeah.
the air conditioner. I'm saying that facetiously, but it's really true. We've lost a lot of the voice that meant so much to us over decades and generations and centuries and on and on and on.
We replaced them, right? Is what you're saying?
Yes.
Like, I'll give an example that happens every night. I love the sound of crickets. It drives her nuts. So I have to put the fan in the room, point it toward the ceiling, and turn it on to where the fan dominates the sound of the crickets. All she can hear is the fan. For me, I can just listen to lots of crickets and go right to sleep. For her, keeps her wide awake, so I have to replace the sound of the crickets with the sound of a fan going all night long.
And she lays
And
close
she
to the
just,
fan.
and she, well, it's right next to the bed, so it drowns out the crickets, and she sleeps peacefully.
You know, we have an experience in Mississippi before we came here. And we have like a little
Pond.
pond or bath. And there were frogs and crickets. So they were together with a symphony, and I was able to sleep like that. But I don't know why, just the cricket sound is kind of like, you know what, I need the frogs too.
I need the frogs too. Well,
Yeah.
get you some frogs.
Well, I don't know where.
It goes back to growing up. The crickets were something that got into your house and made noise in your room that annoyed you, and that never
Yeah.
left her.
If you want
Yeah.
some, Jake he'll have you a handful.
Sorry, we just bought crickets at the pet store last night, so we're crazy.
Yeah, I was out here I had watered everything. The the shade comes in the afternoon over back here, so I'll throw a thing up and water everything for half an hour. And then the frogs, like, you know, I can walk around out there afterwards and I can't see them at all until I do that, and then they feel free to get out and they think it's the evening time or whatever. But I could pick up 10 frogs out here in a matter of 10 minutes. But so
All I need is frogs.
you'll have to come right after I water.
Okay.
Get you some frog, but then you know you gotta feed them and you gotta take care of them.
I know.
You know what they eat, right? Crickets.
Wow.
You might
Anyway.
not have the sound of crickets around. Frogs very long.
Yeah. To show you how nature talks, and the Native American, how they used to, and still do, they can hear everything in nature. Another story, this old Indian was training these two boys how to stalk and track and things like that. So one day he looked at me and he said, there's a snake down there by the water. And the boys knew when he said something, it was, you go investigate, because something's going on. So they took off running through the woods, went down to the creek, sure enough, there's a snake on the creek, by the water. So they come back and say, how did you know that? How did you know? He said, that was a couple of miles away. How did you know? He said, I read the ripples. From the snake crawling out of the water onto the creek bed, it set off a ripple to something else, and finally it got to him. He read the ripples all the way back and knew that snake was on the side of the river there.
Wow.
He read nature, the ripples in nature, the sounds, the birds, everything that told him where that snake was. And those boys confirmed that snake was there. So nature does speak to you, and Native Americans were tuned into that. They could hear it.
Yeah.
And the way the snake moves in the water, that's true. You can tell.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You remember the movie, and I never can think of the name of it, but Val Kilmer was in it. They were on an Indian reservation, FBI.
Thunderheart, yes.
Thunderheart, when Graham Greene had him out there, and he had stopped him, Val Kilmer, and so Graham Greene is reading everything that happened in the ground right there, and Val Kilmer's just shaking his head at him like, you're just an idiot, that's all you are. So Graham Greene starts walking back to his motorcycle, and Val Kilmer says, is that all you got to say? And he says, well, he said, I see you, he said, I see a little hitch in your walk, a little depth in your heel on your left side. He said you're wearing a holster, a little small pistol, maybe a .380 on your ankle. And so Val Kilmer looks at him and said, yeah, you can probably tell me how much change is in my pocket too. And he says 63 cents. But I always thought that was kind of funny. But at the same time, they had that sensory about them, and and they still do. Many of them do. If you really run into one that hasn't become so modernized, it's amazing. Can't find too many. I remember John Stevens came over and he said, I want to find a real true Native American Indian. And I said, well, are you ready to drive out west, go to a reservation, possibly be killed because you're white, you're European, or, you know, we can find one out there if you want to, but they're not around here. He said, no, we don't have to. We were on the Navajo Indian Reservation, Patty and I, and we were driving, and it was getting a little bit late, and I said, let's stop and get some dinner. We swung in this place. It's kind of old, broken down place, but most of the time you can find some pretty good food in those. And so we're in there sitting, we're eating, and the waitress waits on us, and we're eating our food, and the manager walked up to the table. He said, where are you guys from? And I said, Ohio. And he said, do you have relatives here on the reservation? And I said, no. He said, well, let me give you just a little advice. He said, get off this reservation before dark. He said, you're not welcome here. if you're not known by the people. And I said, he said, during the day you are, but not during the night. I said, okay, thank you. So we were off the reservation before the sun went down. But they really have some hard, hurt, in-depth anger and feelings towards society because of what they did to them.
Mm-hmm.
The worst genocide in all the world ever.
Yes.
We say,
Yes.
there was 6 million Jewish people killed across Europe during World War II. Well, from 1820 to 1920, 100 years, there was over 120 million Native Americans killed, slaughtered, buried in mass graves, starved to death, everything else. So there's never been a genocide like what took place, other than when the Lord himself decided to genocide the whole world and put 8 people in an ark and killed all the rest of them. That's the worst genocide I've ever read about. After that, Native American. And
They're not allowed to go back to their old way of life.
not at all.
Government won't let them.
No language, no nothing. Nothing like it was. Okay, so that's kind of everything from the last service that was written to us. There's one other thing, I think it's right back here in the back. I'll wait, we'll get it the next time. But I wanted to bring this and say, I want to bring our awareness up in 2 dimensions that have strong influence in our daily lives. From our first breath in this life, we hear and study to make them a part of us. What we hear in the dimensions are music and language, and we've been talking about language some. We hear melody, singing, and instruments from mother and different places, and it grows from there in every facet of our lives. Language intrigues us as young children, and we listen closely, quickly understanding and reading. How we accept these 2-dimensional frequencies within us will alter our course and many of the paths in our lives. So we'll be discussing music and language. I remember talking about singing and melody and instruments and all the different facets of our life and how language intrigues us, and we listen closely. We gain quick understanding. I remember when I went into the corporation, I was going to have to do a lot of work in South America, and I did a lot of work in South America. And they told me, they said, you need to learn as much Spanish as possible. There's some Portuguese language there in Brazil, but almost all of South America is Spanish. So you need to learn the Spanish language as much as possible. And I said, okay. So I studied it, and I got things, and I listened, and I bought what do you call them, the language tapes and CDs and everything else, and I listened, and I done everything I could, and I just I had a tough time. So I went back and I told the people in the corporation who were the trainers, I said, look, you've given me all these things, I've gone through them, I've done everything I can, and I study it over and over again, but I'm telling you, I cannot learn this language the way you want me to learn it. And one of the trainers looked back at me and he said, oh really? He said, I thought you were smart. And I said, well, I kind of think I am, but he said, well, there's 2-year-olds down in South America that are learning Spanish every day. And I got to thinking about it, and I thought, well, that's right. Them little kids are just blabbering it off like that. And they're learning it every day. And I looked at him and I said, well, maybe it's the need of learning the language that I am missing. He said, you got that right. So I said, well, what I need is an interpreter. When I'm down there negotiating, I need an interpreter. So they gave me an interpreter. And I never did learn the Spanish language.
Well, I want to say something about that. I was talking to Daniel about that yesterday. I'm still learning how to speak, and the pronunciation is a little difficult for me. But I love the language. English, I really, really like it. And I wasn't able to talk with my dad. But I said, you know what, I need to learn. And he sent me tapes, everything for me to learn.
Yes.
And my mom is like, Connie, do something. Your dad spent all this money and blah, blah, blah. I said, okay. I listened to all that, but I need somebody to practice
That's right.
with.
To practice with.
Because all around me was my family. All of them speak Spanish, and I was in Mexico. And how in the world I'm gonna practice what I'm learning? So no, I'm not doing that.
I agree with you, and when I realized that it's the need.
Yeah.
When there's no one around you speaking it, there's no need of you to learn it.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's like, well, I'm trying to learn, but if I don't have nobody to practice
Yeah.
with, how I'm gonna do it?
So what I in my mind, I just thought, you know, if you move me, and I told them that because they were talking about moving me down there for a couple of years to do. I said, if you move me down there, I promise you, I'll come back speaking Spanish because nobody around me will speak English,
Yes.
and I will learn Spanish.
Exactly.
But as long as I'm up here in the English world and nobody around me speaking Spanish, in my mind, I have no need of remembering these sentence structures and these words and these things.
That's right. That's right.
So it's a need.
Yeah.
The third pull, Brother Adam said, works off of a need. Everybody's trying to learn life. That's what the third pull is. It's life.
Yeah.
Accepting life in the condition that it's in and changing what you can. And when you say the third pull is it operates by having a need. And I think everybody thinks that's the need to read. Like I got a need. I need to read what William Brown said. I need to read what the Bible said. I need. That's not it.
That's not it.
It's the need inside you to operate and in the present, here, and now world that you are in. And when you run into that need, it'll operate. It'll work for you. Amen.
Probably once. She's shaking her head. No.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell the story of your first sign language class at Sinclair. Okay, well, she said it to me, and I thought it was very, very good. When she walked into the classroom, you were not allowed to speak at all. I mean, everything had to be done by sign language or find some other means of communication, or you writing it down or something, but you were not allowed to speak in that class because it was a deaf class learning how to speak sign language. So that always stuck with me for some reason. You walk in there and you can't, your normal mode of communication you couldn't use, but you had a need to learn sign language.
Yeah.
So they put you in that mode that you had to learn it by not communicating verbally.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
that always stuck with me for some reason.
I bet you didn't get a finger in edgewise. The normals they can't get a word in edgewise.
You get a finger in it.
It is so important, and she has loved it. The whole concept of bringing to the deaf a world that they can understand, and it means a lot.
It does.
Means so much, and the need is there, and she has really done a lot to fulfill that need for the people. Do you still go to? I know you went to some of the deaf schools and some of the different.
I mean, I
things.
have my job, that's what I do every day.
Okay. Okay. See, I was thinking the animal was the only thing that.
I'm an interpreter, I work at the school every day, in the classroom.
Ah, okay. That is great. That is great. I learned something today. I didn't realize you were still doing that all the time. That is wonderful. So, if you have somebody that you can't communicate with because you don't know sign language, Sister Aubrey is the person. She's your interpreter. Okay, so I just wanted to bring that up. that there are so many ways of communicating. We hear melody and singing, instruments and mother and everyone else that kind of brings us up in a world to understanding how we accept that the dimensional frequencies within us will alter our paths completely. And Brother Stephen Adabon said, amen, Brother Tory, both are our dimensions of communication and expression. And that's what they are.
Mm-hmm.
They're communication and expression. And there are literal thousands of frequencies. Literal thousands of frequencies. And they, everyone, speak to us in some way through music. You have a culture. A lot of your music comes from that culture. I always said, if you can get past who won all the battles, you'll start learning the real cultures of what went on, because the winners write the history.
That's right.
You know, if you don't believe that, just get into the American history and see how much American history they have eliminated from us, and we don't even know about it, because they wrote about their big winning battles, the Europeans that came and the battles they won and the things they did, and the British and the French but you don't hear anything about the Native Americans. You don't hear anything about those that really lived here in their history, hardly at all, because they didn't win. And the winners write the history books.
That's right.
So we have Columbus discovering America, and you know, we got all kinds of stuff that just didn't happen. Yeah, they were there, but it didn't happen the way it's written. So we have communication and expression. Dig in to those little stories and little pieces of history and understanding about your nation, about your family, about your ancestry, about all those things. You'll find out more about yourself and your culture than you will by, reading all these big winning stories of how the heroes came in and done so much. So we'll get back on this. Music, it's just a way. Music is an absolute dimension of itself. And inside that dimension you have literal hundreds of thousands of frequencies. And one day, the frequency may be blues. And the next day, for healing, your frequency may be country western. The next day, your frequency may be soft rock. And the next day, your frequency may be instrumental. The next day, it may be classical. You're moving through those. Those things are in you. And music, if you can find it, it's a real healing process for you. It came out of us. It came out of us. Amen. So we'll stop there, and we'll come back this coming weekend. Brother Jamie Wesley's supposed to be with us this coming weekend. So everybody that can, please come back. For those of you that are out there listening that didn't get to make it today, if you can make it here in person over the weekend, next weekend, we would love for you to. And thank you for everything. And we will stand and let's sing a little chorus of all is well, all is well. We have heard our message, shalom, and all is well. There is a place of perfect rest behind the hands for just a moment, trusting that everything is well with us. For those of you out there, join in with us. Lord Jesus, body, Holy Spirit, we come to you. We thank you for all that you've done for us, for the vibrations of healing, for the frequencies of love, for all the things that you placed here, for all of the language and the speech and the music and everything that you've given us to help us move along. We did it, Lord. We did it moving through and becoming you, knowing who we are in a process of time. And it's all been us, from darkness to light. It's us, and we thank you for it. Heal our bodies, heal us financially, heal us in every way. In Jesus Christ's name we ask it. Amen. Amen.
Really, now you wanna go over and make, ready? Look at me.
You guys haven't seen all those hummingbirds flying today? Did you see all the hummingbirds outside today? I saw 5 at one time.
Yeah, that's what the kids were watching them.
So I'm getting slow but sure.